cherished for new generations by new translations, one of which is sung for us now by New Scottish.
Little old Robin. That was obviously in winter. Hope they don't get me for copyright. It's Psalm 139, and I know that the words are beautiful. For what it's worth, this is the morning scene now, which is... Oh no, that's a sparrow. Very different. Because we are on May the 2nd, Saturday, 2020. Hey. In St Albans, Hertfordshire, England. There is no doubt in my spirit that this current worldwide crisis, not just of health, but of finance and social and anything else in which activities human beings engage, which includes thinking or possibly even praying, has its root in God. In the sense that all things come from God ultimately. Our very lives. Why did he spend 40 years leading his chosen people, the Israelites, out of slavery in Egypt into the promised land, the Holy Land, Israel, Palestine as then was, etc., whatever. No, has become, etc., whatever. Moses was saved in a basket in the river. There were the plagues. It's in Exodus in the Old Testament. They could have crossed that desert in 3 weeks. In the same sense, that was God showing his chosen people, the Israelites, the Jews, that the first duty of us, mankind, every single human being, there are 2 commandments, but the first commandment is love God before all else. And Christ speaks of this. You must deny your family, friends, material well-being and everything, but especially you must deny yourself. That is absolute, direct, central Christian teaching. Whereas we in the West, particularly, overall, the societies, Western societies as a whole, behave as though there is no God. Many people, possibly even most people, certainly normal big organized church attendance is very low. So, if God's purpose is that why he put us in his world, this beautiful creation, this earth which sustains us, without which, if it's not sustainably managed, we wouldn't exist at all, human beings. Why in heaven's name are we here? We're here to love God through Christ. And if we're not doing that, well, clearly God will not be happy. So, as a Christian, my understanding of these matters, quite frankly, is as simple as that. God is saying to us, mankind, all human beings, in this, his earth, the whole planet Earth, every single 7,800 million of us, love me first. That is what he wants. And you don't do that necessarily, or very sadly, quite frankly, through mankind's organized religion. They've gone astray. For me, that's the biggest organized, purportedly Christian organization of mankind, the Roman Catholics, and then particularly in my background, which is the Church of England. As far as I'm concerned, they're well off the rails. But what's new? The Old Testament prophets go on and on about this. Moses came off the mountain with the 10 Commandments, and lo and behold, the people had got fed up with waiting around, and they made a golden calf and started worshipping that instead, for heaven's sake. Well, clearly, mankind's nature is such that it loses sight of this central matter. That we, human beings, are here to love God through Christ and no other God. I know it's contentious to say this, but in the Ten Commandments, the first commandment is, I am a jealous God. Thou shalt love the Lord thy God, and I am a jealous God. Thou shalt have no other gods but me. And then Christ completely reinforces that in John chapter 14. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one shall come to the Father but through me. It doesn't take a genius to work out that all the people of no faith or other faiths, other than that loving God through Christ, both Jew and Gentile, are lost and at the end times will be thrown into the fiery furnace. That is the incontrovertible logic of Christ's words. And God too. So whether this one worldwide crisis created by one tiny little coronavirus, COVID-19, is it, or whether there'll be others, and apparently there definitely are, bugs. The whole world is being taken by its fundamentals and shaken fundamentally in an unprecedented way. They keep using that word in Parliament. I wish they wouldn't. We're living in unprecedented times. Well, we jolly well are. Certainly never in my lifetime. I'm born in 1956. I'm 63 years old, so I did not experience, clearly, the Second World War. Or directly, for that matter, did I experience the two wars in Iraq, with which I utterly disagree. Mankind's complete disregard for any sort of sustainable use, management of this wonderful planet is glaringly obvious. Before this whole pandemic kicked off, global warming was very much an issue. America still in virtual complete denial of it. Who am I to speak on these matters? I'm just a human being in this world. I happen to be well educated and bright and so on, but so what? So, for anyone who's interested, I'm speaking as a Christian. To me, that gives the whole of my being a different perspective, in a sense, to the world in which I live, by and large. I do not feel I live in a Christian society. When I come back to England, I've been off in various other countries around the world, where I feel faith much more clearly. When I come back to England, it's in darkest England, quite frankly, in terms of faith. I feel that intensely. Instead of, I pray every day, all day, on and off, as it were. Not in a sort of holier-than-thou way, but just if I see something, or there's a moment, I'll just stop. Each day, take up your cross and follow me each day. That's not... I'm just an ordinary bloke. I've had a pretty rough old personal life, quite frankly, tragic, In fact, my own son committed suicide at the age of 18, which I've spoken about elsewhere, so I'm not going to go on about that. He would have been 27 last November the 12th. A broken marriage included. But prior to that, I just come from normal middle-class people, doctors, nurses, farmers, and a missionary of whom I'm very proud. In fact, on both sides of my family. I was a lay preacher, Methodist, on my father's side. So I'm just an ordinary bloke. I've worked in hospitals. I've then had my own small computing company for 8 years, in fact. Just working as a business bunny in tailored suits, or not actually, more office clothes, just an old pair of Marks and Spencer's. I had 2 pairs of old Marks and Spencer's trousers, in fact, that I just wore one and washed the other, sort of thing, for years. Just the same old pair of trousers. Well, 2 pairs. And just an old tweed sports jacket with a tie, shirt and collar and tie. And good shoes. So I'm nothing special. It would seem that as someone who loves God through Christ, that does rather make me, quite frankly, a rarity here in England. This is pretty much solid, very middle-class England, although there's quite a big range of population here. The Watford General Hospital, where I ended up as well, has a board with, I think, 37 nationalities, so people who come and work there. The whole board is there with all these nations that people come to England to work. So Watford is very multicultural, multiracial. And they were wonderful, the nursing staff. I was actually in for 19 nights with acute heart failure. I could have jolly well popped my clogs as well. And the nursing staff especially, but the whole medical team, were wonderful. This is the reality of our modern day life. So whatever the past is, and quite frankly, I think my country, I'm British, but England, has also behaved appallingly in the world, but they've also done some wonderful things. So, what can one do? This is the human condition. But, and this is the point, from that beautiful psalm, the one verse, it's Psalm 139, verse 16, the one verse that my mother had written in her prayer book. And she was not a holier-than-thou person at all. She had a very strong faith, but we were not sort of practicing Christians in that sense, church-going Christians. But the one verse, verse 16, is, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. And part of that is in the Lord's Prayer, in the sense that thy will be done. God has a purpose for us. If only we opened our hearts to him. Surely that is obvious. Amen. The marmalade jar with Paddington Bear on it is because, and the top I'm wearing, is because I went to Peru. I was actually physically in Peru last year, and they're Roman Catholic, very strong. very poor people too. Anyway, enough of me. It's so simple. Everyone can understand this message. The 2 commandments, anyone can get this. You do not have to be a Bible-bashing religious nutter to get this. Love God, love your neighbour as yourself.